So he's best known for his role as Aquaman in the DC universe, but in a recent interview with InStyle magazine, actor Jason Momoa surprised fans when he actually revealed that his family were left starving after his work on TV series Games of Thrones. So despite the show being a global success, when his character Khal Drogo was killed off in the first season back in 2011, sorry if that's a spoiler alert, Jason let everybody know that he was actually unable to find work for a few years after and was actually left in debt. So my question to you ladies is there a disconnect between the perception and the reality of being a creative? And how do you sustain yourself when you're trying to make it big?
100%. I think like there is a massive disconnect. I reckon because people think what you produce is lovely and enjoyable, that everything's lovely and enjoyable, but it's just like the fruit that people see, like the graft that no one actually gets to see.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, there was this article a couple of years back, or maybe even just last year, because this year's been long, but there was an article of this EastEnders actress who ended up working in B&M not long after she appeared on EastEnders, and it actually went viral. And so I had this actors workshop and we discussed the article going viral whilst we were in the workshop, and one of my friends who has worked on Coronation Street shared the story about him working in Coronation Street, and then after his gig on Coronation Street ended, working in the card factory. And one of the customers from the card factory spotted him and kind of like turned their nose up at him, like, oh, you've fallen off a little bit, haven't you? You know, which is ridiculous because you haven't. And but people don't understand, and that's why I completely agree. Like, yes, there is a disconnect between the reality and what people perceive it to be, because it's frustrating the fact that the same people who will tell you not to have a creative career because it's not stable, and you can't pay your bills with it and blah, blah, blah. Those are the same people that can't get their heads around the idea that consistent creative work does not happen immediately. So you can have a gig on EastEnders, and then once the gig ends, you go right back to supporting yourself. You can have a gig on Coronation Street, and then once that gig ends, you go right back to supporting yourself. And it's just understanding the fact that there's going to be gaps.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with there being gaps. But the way that I see it is that person who has had a television appearance as big as EastEnders or as big as Coronation Street, who has a day job, has progressed in their career. You have just progressed massively in your career. But because the progression is not what people had in their minds, like it doesn't look like what people had in their minds, then the creatives suffer because the creatives are being mocked by like articles or by customers and things like that. So yeah, it's annoying.
Completely.
I think
go
ahead. No.
I was reading a thing like Keira Knightley said. She's like, in between every film, I'm unemployed. So like, if I don't know when my next film's coming, like that money won't last forever. And people need to realise that like there's no sick leave or holiday leave for artists. You're either working or nothing. So it's just completely different way of living your life.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think that a lot of the perception of this disconnect is due to a lot of non-creatives' fault, because I think with things like social media, you get like a highlight reel of like all the great things that are happening in your life, everything that you're working on now, especially Instagram. It's like, just got this, just in this movie, just created this great content. And so you're always seeing like the highs, and so nobody ever gets to see the lows. So that's why I think there's this massive disconnect between perception and reality, because on social media, I'm perceiving that you've got so many wins this way. So if I saw you in real life working in like Tesco or something, I'd be like, didn't I just see you on Instagram? And that is what I think people naturally have. They're kind of like, but didn't I just see you? Didn't I? But it's having to understand that mindset, like you spoke about ECKOES with Keira Knightley saying, but between everything, I'm unemployed. So if you were unemployed, what would you go and do? You'd go and get a job.
Yeah.
So, so that actually leads to my next question is for yourself, ECKOES. How have you sustained yourself as you've been like on your creative journey?
At the beginning, there is no job I haven't done. Like, I probably handed you something in the street, like flyers, chocolate bar, can of something. Like, I did everything just because you have to. And because you need a certain amount of freedom to go to like an audition or go to something. So getting a 9 to 5 means you won't have time to do the thing that you're working for. So you take all these random jobs, and then like as you get a bit better and you can start like, charging a bit for this, like for artist stuff, then you can like let go of some of the other side jobs. But I think there's no shame in just supporting your art any way you can.
Same, and I agree. I don't think supporting your art diminishes your art or the value of your art that you're putting out, but a lot of people attach shame to it for some reason, and I actually just find it so, like, it's so bizarre to me. And you always find, I don't know if you guys find it, but especially with me, pursuing obviously all the things I want to pursue, people always give me like backhanded compliments. I don't know if you guys get this as well. It's kind of like, how's that little show that you're doing? Or you still doing that radio? Oh, what's going on? And it's kind of like, yeah, still doing it, still fighting for my dreams because that's what I want. Yeah. Did you expect me to stop?
When people say, are you still singing? I was like, are you still a mum? Are you still a doctor? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so weird to me.
Yeah. I think I get the same thing, and it's frustrating because when you want a career in the creative industry, people kind of see you as being like away with the fairies because a creative career is not taken as seriously as like a career in science is, just as an example. And so I think sometimes people, when they ask their questions, the undertones, the subtext of that question is, have you not joined us in reality yet? Like, you're still acting, you're still singing, you're still doing a little radio presenting. That just means, you haven't got there yet. You don't understand. Like, that's not happening. You need to go back to uni. Do you know what I mean? So it's really annoying because, like I said, the perception affects the creative the most. It affects us negatively the most because we understand how the industry works and we understand how, it can start this way. It can start off slow. It can get slow in the middle of your career. You can be at the height of your career and still not get work. But it's about being consistent ourselves. And if we're like consistently finding work for ourselves or consistently creating work for ourselves, that's the thing that's going to help you move to the next level. So sometimes people aren't going to really take you seriously if, like, say for me, for example, if I want to be like, yeah, but I want to make a YouTube video, and they're like, oh, you get paid from YouTube, and I'm like, no, I have like a humble but I love it and I'm doing things that I enjoy, but they can't fathom the fact that at the beginning it's a lot of passion projects and it's a lot of work with no pay just because you believe in it and just because you want to be doing those things, because we've been taught to have this mindset of going for whatever's going to pay the most, and you're dumb if you take something for less pay, and that career can give you so much money, you can be earning this amount by the time you're 25 if you go to uni and study this, but you can get all of those things and still not be happy.
That's the thing. And loads of people say to me, like, what's the goal? What's the aim? Like, what's the point of what you're doing? It's like, what's the point of art? Like, what do you mean, what's the point?
Really? Such a question. And I think just adding on that as well, like for me, and just speaking about my own personal experience, that sometimes the perception could almost make you feel like sometimes my creativity feels stifled because I feel like if it doesn't look a certain way, then people might not receive it in a certain way, or people are like, but I know you work 9 to 5, so why would I take your presenting seriously? This is a side job. So sometimes for me, it's always like, if I let what other people say feed into me, it starts to like block my creativity and like everything that I do. And when I was, I watched one of your interviews, Echo, with a different kind of women, and somebody asked you what your biggest obstacle is, and you said it's sometimes yourself. And I really felt that. I was like, this really feels like myself. Could you speak a bit more to that, about feeling like that?
Definitely. I think a massive part for me was drowning out the voices. Like everyone's like unsolicited advice of, how have you thought about going on X Factor? Who have you thought about all this stuff? Like, I live under a rock and I've never heard of X Factor or anything. So, and it's just drowning out, like, your parents, like, what they thought you should be doing. Like, your friends, like, oh, like, we're going on a ski car holiday and you can't afford it. Like, and it's just letting all of that, like, negativity, making sure it doesn't stop your creativity, and just saying, like, well, I'm on my path. Like, it's not my job to make you understand, to be completely honest. So yeah, I think that's a lot of growth for an artist to kind of be like, okay, well, whatever you say, it's based on your opinion. You don't know how it feels to make the art I do. And if you did, you wouldn't ask any questions.
I love that. I kind of feel the same way. I feel like I've come to a place in my creative career where I'm just enjoying the process, because I've spoken about this on the show before. I've experienced, when I was younger, just being very impatient, because I've always known that I wanted to perform, and so I was always impatient to get jobs, and then when I did get jobs, I kind of wanted them to be bigger jobs, and I just wasn't enjoying my life, because I thought that I should be somewhere else when the only place that I can actually be is here. So I may as well be grateful for everything that I have. And I think it's completely changed the way that I live, just to enjoy everything. Like I said, like, we're doing passion projects, and if you think about it, like, you're harnessing your passion. What more do you want?
Yeah.
You're here doing the things that you love. What else do you want, for real?
Exactly.
And so for us, we're always so focused on the end goal, but the end goal isn't anything. It is actually the journey.
Yeah.
And so if you're not enjoying the journey, you're not enjoying your life as a whole. So you've lost before you've ever
completely
won,
And I think the thing about like having a side hustle and having your art is that you don't put pressure on your art to feed you, so that when you're doing your art, it's like a genuine thing. I think if if it's the only thing I have, then you end up taking any job that you find, just because it's that or starving. So I think having a little,
that's a really good point.
Little something on the side allows you to like just be a bit calm with what your actual purpose is.
Yeah, I think I experienced that as well, because there was a period of my life where the only thing that I was doing was acting work, and it kind of it took the joy out of it for me. So it wasn't like, when you get an audition, it's not like, oh yes, I have an audition, this is so exciting, like I get to learn my lines and I get to get into this character. It was kind of like, oh, finally, and I really need to get this one, because otherwise I can't afford to eat. Like, it's not fun.
It's true though.
And it's supposed to be enjoyable, and so like having that other work really relaxes you and really just makes you feel comfortable and steady, because you can actually do all the things that you need to do in the meantime. Like, Christmas is coming up, we're going to need to be buying gifts, we've got birthdays, we've got all of these things happening, and it makes you feel a little bit resentful, like spending the money that you're earning from your creative career if you don't know when the next money is coming in. And you don't want to ever be like that, because that just sets you up to not earn anymore. Does that make sense?
I agree. I enjoyed the whole sentence. I agreed. Well, so as Luanda says, you just have to enjoy your life and enjoy every moment that you're in, and I completely agree with that sentiment. I'm enjoying my life. I'm hoping the rest of you lovely ladies are enjoying your life, and there's no shame in dreaming big and fighting for your dreams and going after what you want.